Hello everybody and good morning. It's Sunday, the 25th day of Tishrei. We are the day after Shabbos, which is the day after Simchat Torah, and we have said goodbye. Today is also the 19th of October, and we are continuing the book, The Four Worlds. And last week in the Sukkah, we were talking about the second world, the world of Berea, the world of creation. And we discussed at great length how we can call the world of creation an entity, although it's a very spiritual world, but in comparison to the previous world, the world of Atzilus, there is no real connection over there. It's like something new. Therefore there is now an impression of something that wasn't there before. It's now a created being. Okay, so now we have gone through the first two worlds, the world of Atzilus, which is an entity but not quite an entity, because the godliness in it makes it feel very godly, but it's sort of still an entity, like this note that's in the back of your mind somewhere, which is an entity, but it's undefinable and you can't find it anymore. It's sort of floating around, who knows what. But the world of Berea is a real world, although again, it remains in its spiritual form. For those who read the Good Shabbos email, or who were in Shul yesterday when we spoke about this, Earth being the lowest form of anything in the universe, it's the lowest form that comes from God, is actually the highest form in the entire universe that represents infinity. Because it always grows. When God said in the third day of creation that the earth should sprout forth vegetation, he said also on, let's say, the fifth day of creation, let the water produce fish. And he said on the sixth day of creation, let the earth produce insects and animals. Well, the earth doesn't produce insects and animals anymore, and the water doesn't produce fish anymore. It was a one-time deal. But when they said that the earth sprouts forth vegetation, that never stops. So that in and of itself already indicates that there is infinity within the world. Why? Because the earth is the lowest form. The water doesn't continue to produce, but the earth does. And that blessing from the third day of creation, the first week of creation, never stops. If you want the earth to grow a tree, then you'll have to take a seed, and the seed will have to decompose, and then the power of the earth will grow a tree. The seed doesn't grow the tree. The seed goes nowhere. The seed goes to nowhere. The seed goes to nothing. Decomposes. It's the earth, the power of the earth, you're giving it a map to grow as a tree. So the earth is the lowest form of all. That is the absolute lowest world. Higher than the world, higher than the world, is the world of Yetzirah, which we are going to discuss now. The third world, the world of Yetzirah, carving, in the middle of page 42. Yetzirah carving has very little to say about this one. The world of Yetzirah, that's the third world, however, is called carving. The word Yetzirah actually means formation. The way you form something, remember last week you spoke about engraving. When you engrave a stone, then the stone itself tells you what the word is, not an extra entity on the stone, like of ink on paper, or the ink that's written on the Sefer Torah, which can be in some form, it can be erased. That's in engraving, however, is part and parcel of the stone. So that's engraving. Carving means that you've now formed something. That you've taken a piece of wood or a piece of stone and you've carved it out, and that means discarded the rest of it. So let's see what he says here. The world of Yetzirah, however, is called carving, which is a defined form that does not change. Once you've carved it, it can only change if you continue to carve it. But if you let it go, it can remain that way forever. It does not merely have the capacity for change, which is what the second world is. The world of creation, as we said before, it can be now something different. It's a new entity. And here, not the capacity for change, rather the Metziat has already come into a form. The entity has now been carved into a form that is carved in a certain way. In other words, a limited way. So the third world is much more limited than the second world. It's still a spiritual world, but the spirituality in it is limited. Now, again, if you paid attention to the high holidays, and I pointed this out a few times, but I didn't really have enough time to explain it. To explain prayers, you would need a whole class in and of itself, and standing there praying, well, nobody wants to stand there all day, or all night. But in the high holiday prayers, I pointed this out, and it's actually said twice. Once it is said, and I did not point it out then, in the preparation or in the build-up to the Shema. So every time we say the Shema, the Torah says, when the Torah introduces the Shema, in the book of, chapter 6 of the book of Deuteronomy, so the Shema says that you should say these words in the morning, and then when you wake up and when you lay down. When you lay down, when you wake up. Those are the precise words. What does it mean, lay down? You should say the words when you lay down. Does it mean when you lie down, or does it mean when you and wake up, or does it mean at a certain time? So there's a disagreement between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Those two argue the most frequently in the Talmud. The school of Shammai and the school of Hillel. And Shammai says, yeah, when you lie down, and therefore when you say the Shema, lie down, and then when you wake up, you say the Shema, standing up, waking up. Beit Hillel says, no, you can't do that, because everybody lies down and wakes up at different times. So you don't have, there has to be a defined time, or else nobody will ever say it. So therefore you should say it. I mean, what if you don't go to sleep? You shouldn't say the Shema. So it doesn't mean a location, or it doesn't mean an action of what a person is doing, but rather it's a time frame. And then, when it says when you lay down, it means in the time where people begin to lay down, which is the beginning of the night. But you have all night to say the Shema. And when it means waking up, it means from the morning, has to be a certain light out there before you say the Shema. And it only goes to 3 hours of the day. I thought I said something funny. It only goes to 3 hours. You were laughing, and I said, did I say something out of line or something? And in the morning, it only goes to 3 hours in the morning, because as the Talmud says, that people who are kings wake up late, 3 hours in the day. And the Jewish people are considered the children of God. It's the children of the king. So you give them a time, so it's 3 hours into the daytime. So today's Shema, according to the zip code and the app that I have on my phone, so today's deadline for saying Shema is 10:34, which is just about almost. We haven't even reached it yet. We are one of the latest times in the world, actually. I tell my father once in a while, oh, today the deadline for Shema is 10:30. Cool. Because it could be 8 o'clock in London when it gets light at 3 in the morning. It could be very, very early. In 3 hours doesn't mean 3 hours of 60 minutes. It means 3 hours proportioned. If you take the day and divide it into 12 sections, that would be the hour. It's a time hour, it's not a 60-minute hour. It's just a borrowed term hour. So the Shema said in the morning, and that's how we do it. It's said in the evening, at nighttime when nightfall happens, and it's said in the morning when morning happens. Nighttime you have the whole night, but in the morning you only have a certain time. When you wake up, there's a certain time. Now, the Shema in the morning prayers, and the Shema in the evening prayers are both preceded in the prayers, in the prayer liturgy. They are both preceded by 2 brachas, by 2 blessings. They are much longer in the morning, and they are much shorter in the evening. In the evening, they're both 1 paragraph. But each blessing is like a paragraph, and then you get into the Shema. It's It's a much shorter service. The morning time, where a person has, at the beginning of the day, it's time to spend with God. So the morning time, the blessings are longer. And in the first blessing is all a description of the greatness of God. He begins by saying he fashions the light and he creates the darkness and so on. And he brings light to the world and he provides this to the world and he's unbelievable and is a blessing forever and all of that. And then it says, and even the angels bless God and they say every day, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And those words are from the book of Isaiah. And he says, that the angels were saying, holy, holy, holy is the God of the hosts, and his glory fills the entire world. That is a certain type of angels. all like one recite these words. Then it says, the Ophanim, and the Srafim, and the Chayot HaKodesh. Those are three different types of angels. Ophanim are being wheels, Srafim means burning, and Chayot HaKodesh means holy animals. They all say, Baruch Kavod Hashem Min Kamo. Blessed is the glory of God from His place. The other ones were saying His glory fills the whole world. They're saying blessed from His place. Now, those two verses are said again in what we call Kedusha. Kedusha means holiness, and it's only recited when there is a minyan, when there are 10 Jewish males over the age of bar mitzvah. That makes a minyan. And we say Kedusha only in the repetition of the Amidah. And then there we say that you, God, are holy, and then the angels, they say this. We borrowing this from the angels. We know this from the prophets. We know it from Isaiah, we know it from Ezekiel. They describe what happens over there, they describe the type of angels, and they describe to us what they say. But notice the difference. The first group says, and this is what we do in Kedusha as well. The first one says, Kadosh, 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 holy, 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 and the whole world is filled with His glory. The other ones are saying, blessed, they don't say holy, holy. They say, blessed are you, the glory of God, from His place. That means that they don't see His place. They can only talk about a place somewhere. The other ones see God in the whole world. These don't perceive God that way. Which is why they are called those strange names. They're called wheels, and they're called burnings, and they're called holy animals. And each one of them represents a different type, a different level of an angel. The wheels are the ones that spin. Why are they spinning? Because when they receive this glory of God, this greatness of God, they can't handle it, and it's too holy for them, and they start spinning. They spin in their place. The burning ones, they jump up and down like a fire, keeps them going up and down. So they do less than spinning. Spinning is just impossible to stay in one place. Up and down, at least you're in the vision. And the holy animals are just like animals are beasts are very emotional. It's all heart and it's all anger and it's all. Think about the big beasts in this world, and don't mess with them because they will inflict massive injury or harm. Similarly, the angels are very emotional. They get very moved by the great revelation of God, but not as bad or not as meshuggah as the spinning ones or the jumping up and down ones like fire. They just get very, very worked up. And this is all metaphors for us to understand the capacity of these angels that are not that high because they are in a lower world. Because they're in a lower world, the spirituality that arrives at them is much less, it's much more filtered, it's much less intense. They wouldn't be able to handle in a higher one. But when this stream of godliness comes through, they get lost, they lose themselves. And they can't say God is everywhere. They say God is in this place, but now we know. Incidentally, the second blessings on both the morning and the night are about God's love for the Jewish people. He's such a great God, and look what He's done. He's chosen us. The words uvanu v'chatu every day. And God chose us to be His people, to be His light unto the nations. to be his messengers to the world. He's chosen us and brought us close to him. Therefore, Shema Yisrael, this is how we end, and we say, we thank you, and we declare Shema Yisrael, and love you, God. We love him back, and that's how the blessings work in the morning, leading up to the Shema, and then we repeat that if there's a minyan in the Kedusha, and we actually stand with our 2 feet together, and we do a little gyration here or there just to emulate the angels. So in the world of Yetzirah is where these lower angels are found. Because it is the world of carving, meaning that there is a form, there's a shape here, and an unchangeable kind of shape. That means very limited. It's not like the world of Atzilus, which is very heavily godly, and it's all you feel is the godliness there, and therefore you feel the infinity of the world, even though, and despite that, it is a world per se. And it's not like the second world, which is a world of engraving, which means that there is something there, but you can't quite define it. In the third world, it's much more defined. You have spinners, and you have this one, you have that type, and it's a more definition over here, and then therefore less intense godliness. Although again, we're talking a spiritual world still, but lesser impact, powerful, infinite godliness is found in the third world. And now we come to the fourth world, the lowest world, Asiya. The world of Asiya, as its name suggests, is an absolute Metziah. That is a total, absolute entity. The word Asiya means action. And action is the way action we understand it, the way we appreciate it, which means that something is getting done now. It's here. So if you compare the engraving and then the carving, then after the carving you want to paint it and finish it now it's here, it's made, it's done. Whereas in the world of Yetzirah, the primary thing is form. In Asiya, the primary thing is Metziah. It is an entity. It is tangible. It's here. So those are the chain of the worlds. And even in the world of Asiya, there is a spiritual Asiya. And then there is a physical, material Asiya. We are in that Asiya world. We are in the bottom of the barrel. There is nothing lower than our world. There is nothing lower in the universe than our world either. I don't mean in space. I mean in physical matter, things that, there's nowhere else where there will be intelligent life, and therefore there's no development anywhere. We've gone through this many times. They continue to search for life on other planets, and they get all excited, and they say, it looks like there was water here, the water was right, blah, 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 blah. But there's nothing has ever come out of that. And they suggested perhaps there might have been some bacteria in it. They didn't find that either on any of the worlds, but they'll never stop looking because, of course, you want to look. However, they will never find intelligent life. We've gone through this before. Intelligent people who can invent things and create things, they'll never find anywhere other than this world. No, this is me talking now. This is not the Torah. This is not anyone's. This is just my very limited opinion. I believe that they'll never find any life in any form in any place. That's my personal, just my own belief. Only because it doesn't seem necessary anywhere else. The reason why there will never be intelligent life found anywhere is because the reason why human beings need intelligence, as God says in yesterday's Torah portion, when He creates man, He says, I want to create you in my image. That means you have an ability to create, to innovate. And the only way a human being can do that is to follow God's instruction. And God's instruction is in the Torah. And the Torah is given to us. It talks about Egypt, and it talks about the things that happened in history. So if it's given to anyone else, then the Torah wouldn't be a true Torah. So you're going to say, well, maybe the other half of the Torah, which wasn't given to us. The Torah is Torah's emes, the Torah of truth. There's only one truth. since truth can only be one way. It can only be this way and not any other way. And so since it was given to us, and it talks to us, there cannot be another side of Torah given to a different people who have different experiences in a different planets or in different worlds or everything else. It can't be. So therefore, there's no need for intelligence anywhere else, because there would be no Torah given to any other place. The reason why we have intelligence is to be able to utilize it to follow God's way. God's way is in the Torah that's only exclusively given to us. And therefore, there is no need for intelligence anywhere else. There's no need for intelligence anywhere else. So yeah, you may have some bacteria, you may have some flies or whatever it might be, but not intelligent people who can create domes and spheres and flying saucers and coming down to this wall and doing experiments. It's funny that these experiments are, for some reason, are only to some farmers in Oklahoma or something. But let them come down to some scientists and some doctors in Washington or in New York or somewhere else, and then we'll talk about intelligent beings coming down to this wall. Why are they beaming up, people who don't even know how to talk English? All right, go ahead.
Why would God create a universe of planets if there's no need for it?
Very good question. They haven't found the need for it yet.
Oh.
I believe that, this is only me talking now, this is just my personal belief, that they will soon discover, or one day they'll discover, maybe they won't, that every single aspect of the universe is there in order to make sure that this world is exactly the way it is, in the exact shape and the exact position and everything else. It could also be that God made it so that there should be a vast, endless amount of investigation to get to know the greatness of God. I don't know. Who knows?
For us to look at.
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
But there is a reason.
There's got to be a reason for it. I just think that one day they'll find how everything works in its way, so that this world should be where it is. That's just my very uneducated, very unscientific opinion. That's just my theory.
So Rabbi, when we say olamim,
Where do we say olamim?
Olamim, are we talking about?
Where do we say
worlds?
olamim? Like in the davening? Where do you mean olamim?
Like what does that mean?
When you see things mean different things, different places. Point. Yeah. So are you pointing to a specific place?
Well, I'm thinking about when we say it in davening, but like, we're learning about these four worlds.
There is a verse that comes from Psalms that says Ki v'kol Hashem tzur olamim, and which means that God is the rock of the worlds. And our sages say on this in the Talmud that we're talking about the spiritual world and the physical world. It says in the other world he created it with a yud, and this world was created with the hey. That's what the Talmud says. And Hasidic teachings explain that at great length, the difference between the yud and the hey. I can't get into this now. Mm-hmm. But that is a reference to the spiritual world and to the physical world. It doesn't get into capacities. It doesn't get into levels.
I'm saying, the four worlds we're learning about are not...
They're not really worlds in a sense of worlds. Because every time we say world, we imagine this globe. And then there's like another world called Mars, or do we include all the planets in the world and what? It's just a borrowed term. The reason why it's called a world is because there are different levels, and each one of them is filled with all kinds of different energies and filters. So they call it's like a whole world. So the term that is used is world. And in each different world, there's different types of creations and creatures and angels and souls. And so the term world is not really a reference to the world per se. It's just a reference to a different level.
Time space.
So when it says world that's why I asked you again. That's why I asked where are you quoting from? If you're quoting from that place in the Uvar Tzion, then it's just a reference to the upper world and the lower world, the spiritual world and the physical world. See, the term world can be used in many ways. It's a borrowed term. Oh, it's got the whole world on its shoulders. We use this term as well. The end result, though, is that this world is an outcome, an outcrop of the four worlds. It's really, the four worlds are all here because the world couldn't be the way it is if it didn't have the previous worlds slowly filtering out the godliness and making it possible that the world should be this way. Which means that this is a world where godliness is concealed. So try and compare the first world, the world of Atzilus, and he went on and on about how godly it is and how the non-entity and the non-entity and then 4 levels later you're here. This is where the godliness is not apparent. You got to look for it, you got to find it, you got to search, you got to seek for it. Because it's not apparent, it's not clear. When you look outside, you don't see God, you don't see angels, you don't see souls. You see people, and you see animals, and you see trees, and you see ground and earth. That's what you see. So it's a real tangible mitzvah. It's a real, it's an action. It's here. You can touch it, you can feel it. It's not spiritual. Of course, if you go out there, you can look for it, and you can find it, and there's great miracles, and the miracle of nature in and of itself is unbelievable, and so on. But it doesn't have an apparent godliness that you can see with your own eyes. And that was the purpose of the creation of this world, that there should be a world that conceals God, and then there are people in this world who are there to discover God, to find God, and to act godly in their lives through the instructions of the Torah. Well, the Jewish people have the 613 commandments, and the rest of the world have 7 Noahide laws, which are basic moral civil laws. Okay. So, final paragraph of 42. So the idea of these 4 worlds, Atzilut, Beria, Yetzira, Asiya, is that each world represents an increase and coarsening, thickening, in the nature of Metziat, making it more of an entity, making it more physical. It doesn't become physical till here, but it becomes more tangible. Whatever. In the world of Atzilut, the nature of Metziat is that it is no longer a non-Metziat. The entity of the highest world is that it's simply no longer a non-entity. We use the term non-entity for pure godliness, because we have no way to define it, we have no way to describe it, and therefore we just say it's nothing. It's nothing because we can't define it. So Atzilut is no more nothing. It's no more a non-entity. It's not quite an entity yet, but it's not a non-entity. It's not a nothing, because it's a world. If it's a world, there's got to be something there. In the world of Beria, the nature of Metziat is that it has the capacity to attain form. It's got a form in it now. So now you can feel the world of it. Unlike the world of Atzilus, well, despite the fact being that it's a world, godliness takes over there, although it's not a non-entity like the godliness prior to it. But still, it's not a non-Metziat, but it's not a Metzias yet. And Beria, it is a Metzias because you can already see the form of the world. In the world of Yetzirah, the nature of Metziat is that it attains form. It remains that way. It's going to stay that way. It's going to be that way. And therefore, not just can you feel it, but it can't be changed. It can't be expanded. It can't grow anymore. It's stuck in that way. It's very limited now, much more limited than the previous one. And in the world of Asiya, the nature of Metziat is that it enters actual Metziat. It's going to produce an entity that we as people, as humans, can actually feel and touch and see. You see the thickness, the coarseness of the world which is hiding the godliness. Page 44. Nevertheless, just as the loftiest of the four worlds, just like it is in the highest of the four worlds, the world of Atzilut is a world. In other words, defined by the definitions of a world. It's not non-mitzvah. We said it's not a non-entity anymore, but it's still but it's a world. It's called a world. It means that it has a beginning and it has an end. It has definition. So, two, the lowest of these worlds, the world of Asiya, is also a spiritual state and does not possess any physicality of the Metziat of the physical world. The world of Asiya, that means the spiritual side of this world. As I said before, there's also a spiritual side. That side is also, it doesn't have any of the physical. You have to get down to this world to get to the physical side of it. Look in footnote 47. In other words, the four worlds exist between utter nothingness and physical reality, which is our world. Thus, the highest world is no longer utter nothingness, and the lowest world is not yet physical reality. So the highest world, the world of Atzilus, it's gone out of the realm of nothingness, of pure godliness. It's now defined. And the lowest world, before you get down to this world, is still a spiritual world. So it's all in the spirit. It's not here until you get down to this physical world.
This kind of philosophy is like, well, Plato kind of offered a simplified, dumbed-down version of this in his about the non-world.
Plato came years, almost 1,000 years after this was discussed in Kabbalah, which came during Talmudic times, and even before that. So, these guys, whoever,
So maybe he borrowed from them, maybe he studied from them.
Plato was a Greek, so he could have. Plato is I don't want to push away his philosophy, because it's also his philosophy is brought down by other great Jewish great sages and holy people. But he goes off after that. You know, he'll give you this things and visions and views that he has in order for godliness to come down to this world, and in order for this world to be doesn't use godliness. But eventually, though, Plato, he doesn't end in the same place. He doesn't tell you, therefore, there's so much godliness in this world. That's what he's not telling you. He's got his own ideas, Plato. Can, maybe him, a little bit more spiritual.
Who?
Yeah, the philosopher Can.
Kant, K-A-N-T.
Yeah. You ever read him?
I've heard of him, but no, he's above my pay grade.
Right.
He's like a teacher.
Above my pay rate.
Anyway. Which reminds me of the story of Aristotle. The story is told about him, and if it wasn't him, it could be anyone like him. That they caught him, his students caught him red-handed, just a pure lie. They asked him about something, and he just lied. And the whole thing is about, how you have to look at the right thing and the honest thing. And he's teaching all this philosophy, and then he's lying. So they confronted him. Once they caught him, the next day when he came to class, when he came to teach, whatever it was, they asked him about this. They said, you're here teaching about the purity of whatever, and you behave in a completely different way. And he said,
do as I do, not as I say.
Whatever I teach you, yeah, that's I'm Aristotle here. When I go out, I'm a different Aristotle. Which means that you might be a smart man, but you're a baloney, because if your stuff is not brought from your heart, then it doesn't really have it might be very smart, but what does it do? If you want to take it to the real extreme, as I mentioned yesterday, you had a country just 75 years ago that led the world in philosophy and in science and in medicine and in arts and in the musics and in all the different things. And 60, 70 million of them turned into a country that butchered 6 million Jews, that exterminated them for no reason, and many million others in the most brutal, cruel, and evil way. So if ISIS is doing what they're doing, you say, oh, the Muslims, what do you expect? The primitive losers are trying to go back to the 12th century. But you're talking about developed, because it's philosophy, it stays in the head. It's all about how things can be or should be in your mind. It's nothing to do with your heart, nothing to do with your actions. All right, but the purpose of this is not to be philosophical. It's to give us a glimpse into how much is in our presence here. Our presence has a meaning, a spiritual, holy, godly meaning. Look what God has done to reach this level and to create people and give us the ability to grow and to. When a person comes into this world, we were watching it last night, the video of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe quoted the Talmud that says, if a person comes to the market and he sells his merchandise at the same price that he purchased it, then what are you doing in the market? What are you doing here? What have you done? What have you accomplished? You've got to make a profit in order to survive, in order to make a living. Only a fool goes to the market and says, "Oh, I'll give it you a cost price." What's the point? So the same thing is the soul comes out to this world, and it's given certain directions, it's given certain abilities, it's given talents, it's given merchandise to go buy and sell it. Well, a person has to look different in his or her own life, and in the difference that one made in the world, in order for it to be worthwhile. Or else, what do you bother the soul to come all the way down here and do what? What has happened in our lifetime as we are haggling in the marketplace? What have we done? What have we accomplished? What has been changed? How much profit are we taking back with us? And it's not the gold. We told the story last week about the guy who got permission to bring back the gold. And when he got up there, they said, if you had permission to bring something from this world, what are you going to do with this here? It's nothing. It's just absolute nothingness. So there has to be a profit. All right. All right, we're going to have to, we're starting a whole new philosophical line from direct and indirect perception now. So we'll quit here. And next week, as we won't be here for the week, for the Shabbos. This coming Shabbos, we will not be here. The synagogue will be open for a short time, but we personally will not be here. But Sunday morning, Kabbalah Coffee lives on. I try very, very hard not to miss this class.